Hello nerds! We are doing another Adventure Photography. It is Denver Pop Culture Con 2019, and this is Adventures in Photography. Alright, so before we get outside, and I have to put the ND filter on because this is Adventure Photography and we use ND filters here. No, but so what you just saw was some pictures of my first client of the con, and Ronin Endgame. She was Hawkeye, I guess, if you are unfamiliar with the comic book version of the character. But what we primarily were doing natural light because we have all of that natural light here at this really great convention center. Like, I really like shooting at the Colorado Convention Center because Focus. All right. Yeah, I like shooting at the Colorado Convention Center, but just because it has all of these windows and all of this natural light makes it just so much fun. It's getting really loud. We're outside. But so there's a lot you can do with natural light, especially if you're shooting at a con. Don't be afraid to find a window and use that as your light source. But yeah, now let's get back to more pictures, shall we? So, I know we haven't been talking as much for this Adventures, but it is what it is. But we did just do a couple of really cool shoots with two different pyramid heads. It was effectively the same thing, just obviously two very different cosplays. So the first of which being that guy right there. But so what I was trying for, because again, we're playing with these time lapses. We're playing with what's built into the camera versus what we can stitch together in post. So the settings for the stitch together in post way of doing what we just did is I had the shutter speed at 1/10 of a second, so we could get some blur, but they didn't have to hold still for too long. It's because a costume like that is going to really be uncomfortable if you gotta hold still for 30 seconds every shot, and then trying to get enough frames to make something that's viewable as a time lapse. Even what we got is barely 2 seconds worth of time lapse. So I'll probably end up doing something similar to what I did for the New Orleans time lapses, in that instead of making each picture one frame, we'll make each picture probably about 2 frames. Still will have the same effect, but it'll give us a little bit more room to see what happened in the time lapse. Otherwise, though, I'm really excited about it. Other things that we just saw photo-wise, dealing with natural light. So while you're at Comic-Con and you're trying to take pictures of cosplayers, the lighting in these convention halls really sucks unless you can find, unless you have lighting of your own, which they haven't really stopped us from bringing lights, but I am also here with different credentials than most, so I don't know exactly what they would do if you were trying to bring in lights. Softbox generally is a little bit too much if you're not media, from what I do know, but I've seen people do it. So depending on what con you're going to, I think that's going to dictate how they feel about you bringing in slightly more professional gear. This has been a lot of fun though. I will try. I'll make a little bit more a point on at least on day 3 or the rest of day 2 to get some more photography stuff. Otherwise, back to the pictures. So we did just shoot. I didn't really do a whole lot of stills. I didn't really do any stills for the cosplay contest, but there are some things to learn because I did shoot some video, and doing video in this capacity and doing stills, there's similarities. And one of those things, here, let's move around and make it more visually interesting, shall we? One of those things is distance. If you are a good bit away from your subject and at a cosplay contest at con, you're going to be a good deal away. You're going to need a long lens. You're going to need something. This is my kit lens. This is the only super long lens I have. It's a 300, so add the 1.6 crop. You can Google it. Or calculators are a thing too, I guess. But even with the kit lens, I know kit lenses always get a really bad rap, but even with the kit lens, you're going to get some decent stuff. You just got to make sure you're keeping in mind your holy trilogy of light, your aperture, your ISO, and your shutter speed. So your f-stop on a kit lens is usually going to be pretty big. This kit lens goes from 4 to 6 and 5.5, 6.5, something like that. I just put it away, otherwise I'd look. So keeping that in mind, you kind of have to bump your ISO. So a lot of places that do cosplay competitions, you're gonna have to crank that ISO because they don't have a lot of light in the house of the theater. This, as you're seeing behind me, this is the light that they had on. They haven't brought the lights up because the competition's over. They are being very kind to the photographers, so it was a little bit easier to get shots, to get the video that I was looking to get. So, but you're not going to be able to crop. That's kind of the point that I'm trying to make. If you're using your kit lens and you have to crank that ISO, you're not going to be able to crop in. But the zoom on the kit lens should kind of eliminate the need for the crop in. So it's kind of 6 one way, half a dozen the other. You can get good stuff. You just have to be very, very mindful. And of course, as we come outside, it is still bright. Woohoo! You have to be very, very mindful of your trilogy of light. So learn that and you will be just fine, even with a kit lens. All right. Here we are on day 3. Day 3 is usually, pretty much always, the shorter of the 3. And I'm already tired and I just got here. But I have a lot to do, so let's get doing it. One last thing that I wanted to address before we sign off on, what is this, number 16 for Adventures in Photography? It's courtesy. When you're shooting at a convention, when you're here to take pictures, right? Even if you're just doing it because you like the cosplay stuff, We've talked about this before. It's courteous to not take up all of the room, especially like if you're on the vendor floor, and there's not a whole lot of room to begin with for people to move around. The throughways are really narrow. It's courteous to find a spot, try to step aside, or maybe find a really open spot so you're not blocking the entire way. But what Denver has done this year is they've taped off these areas. I don't know how well you can see that, but they've taped off these areas for if you're going to be stationary. And this is not on the vendor floor, obviously. This is right outside the vendor floor. But if you're going to be stationary, then you're on the inside of the tape, and if you're trying to move, you're on the outside of the tape. And it's actually one of the things that I think they did very well. So, yeah, but that's going to be the end of this episode of Adventures in Photography, guys. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope you learned something, had a little bit of fun, at least saw how kind of photographer works on the floor at a large convention. And if you're new to the channel, click the subscribe button. If you like the episode, definitely let me know that. There's a thumbs up or a thumbs down if otherwise. And if you want to see the other stuff on the channel, then you can click or tap the box to the left, wherever that is, to the left of my face. And join us next time in Adventure Photography. But before we go, always remember that if it's generally nerdy, it's probably here, and sometimes we take pictures.